All right, you guys. So thank you so much for coming today. For those that are here live and for those that are listening to the recording later, I appreciate you being here. Today, we're going to talk about trendy diets. And I know we might have talked about some of these diets individually, but diets are always a hot topic because everybody's usually on a diet, right? So sometimes it gets a little confusing. So I want to kind of go through which ones we should follow, which ones, you have to be careful about. And I wanted to teach you actually a technique that I use with some of my clients and patients called mind mapping. It's really cool. So I'm going to give you a little case study at the end. The patient actually allowed me to, share his story. So I wanted to end the presentation with that. So we're going to talk about the difference between a fad diet and a therapeutic diet. If you follow the right diet, you can really hurt yourself. Okay. And I've seen because this is my field, I see people, trying to go into diets because they want to lose weight or get healthier, and then they end up having a bigger problem. Well, that's not worth it then. So we have to be careful. But did you know that nutrition is the root of either good health or ill health? And poor diet is attributed to 11 million deaths worldwide. And that's pretty crazy, right? We know that there are different conditions and diseases that are related to poor diet and lifestyle. It's also related to genetics and environment and lots of other things too. But cardiovascular disease is still the #1 cause of death in the United States and globally as well. So despite all this information on what we should be doing with our diet, we have access to healthy food. Some of us might not have access to healthy food, actually. We have all these different modified foods out there, low fat, low sugar, sugar-free, where we still have a problem. So what's the problem, right? We've got diabetes, which is on the rise. We've got insulin resistance, which is on the rise and very under diagnosed. Obesity is through the roof. That's my field. So no matter what we do, the number keeps going up instead of going down. Cancer is, especially some unusual cancers like esophageal cancer, stomach cancer. Those are on the rise in the United States. Respiratory diseases, asthma is still through the roof. And of course, with COVID, many different patients and clients that actually have consequences of COVID. They have pulmonary fibrosis, they have COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Kidney diseases are going crazy through the roof. And why is that? Well, whenever you have an increase in diabetes, you have an increase in cardiovascular disease and you have an increase in kidney disease because they're related. So, when I say and many more, you have to think about every single organ system. We have 11 organ systems, and each one is going to be affected adversely by poor nutrition, right? Each one. So this is just what I had mentioned before. Heart disease still #1, followed by stroke, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases and other infections, Alzheimer's, diarrhea, diabetes. So, we're still having a problem, not just in the United States, but globally. Now, I always like to show this picture because a lot of us are egocentric and we think the United States is the healthiest country. Well, guess what? It's not. Okay, so the leading healthiest country is actually Spain. I think I want to move to Spain. I love Spain, followed by Italy, Iceland, Japan, Switzerland, etc. So you can see the countries. When you look at the population of these countries, they really are following a Mediterranean diet. They're eating a plant-based diet. Plant-based doesn't necessarily mean vegetarian. Okay, plant-based just means that the majority of your intake comes from plants. Doesn't mean that you're vegetarian or vegan. Iceland, they're eating a lot of fish. Japan, a lot of fish. So you can kind of make that relationship between the Mediterranean diet, intake of fish, confers health. And then all the way down here, Ireland. I was surprised Ireland even made the grade here. South Korea, Canada. I don't even see the United States on here. Do you? Am I missing it? No, missing it. So we are not, unfortunately, the healthiest country. So what's the difference between a fad diet and a therapeutic diet? Well, fad diets, some of them are very tricky because they sound really good on paper or they sound really good on the TV as an advertisement. But a fad diet is usually designed for weight loss or eliminating some sort of disease, or it's going to cure something. And remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Typically that diet is unhealthy and unbalanced because it's taking away a food group, usually a group, not even a food product, a whole group. There's limited research to actually support its efficacy and safety, and it can be harmful to certain populations or certain conditions. I'm going to show you that a little bit later. Whereas a therapeutic diet is nutrition intervention. It's evidence-based. It's a diet that is going to specifically address that person's condition, whether that condition is weight or diabetes, etc. And it is a meal plan that might for certain things, but not necessarily eliminate whole food groups. Okay. So how do you determine between one or the other? Well, if a fad diet usually promises quick things, quick fixes, and there's never a quick fix when it comes to your health and with reaching goals. There never is. And also, do you have to buy certain products from that particular company? You know, maybe they could be useful, but if they're promoting that, then that is also telling you it could possibly be a fad diet. Definitely look up the scientific research. You know, just because it's endorsed by a doctor doesn't necessarily mean that it's evidence-based. Okay, so just remember that. No disrespect to our doctors. You know, I have a doctorate in nutrition, but if I endorse a product, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a therapeutic diet. So what's so dangerous about it? Well, you can definitely lose body water and lean body mass. And if you're losing water, you're losing electrolytes. If you start losing electrolytes, you're going to hurt your health, especially your heart. If you're trying to lose weight through a fad diet, it's usually temporary. You get all excited because maybe you lost 5 pounds in the first week, but if you lost 5 pounds of water, that's really not losing weight. If the diet does not support a lifestyle change, then this is just a quick fix, right? It's actually a Band-Aid is what it is. Fad diets long-term can lead to vitamin deficiencies, which in turn can lead to other really devastating illnesses. Just that emotional and psychological strain of dieting. Like I think, just being a nutritionist, I think diet is a 4-letter word, right? It really is 4 letters. But I'd rather think of what are dietary approaches to help with lifestyle. So we've had a lot of different diets over the years, and some of them are so wackadoo. And let me tell you, they're having a resurgence. That's what freaks me out. I mean, look at this, 1820, the vinegar and water diet. Well, guess people are doing the apple cider vinegar diet. All right, so that's come back and had a resurgence. The keto diet was all the way in 1920. It was used for epilepsy. So this is actually an evidence-based diet for epilepsy, not for weight loss. We just kind of transformed that into a weight loss. Cabbage soup diet. Weight Watchers, which is really interesting, back in the 1960s, it was devised by medical professionals, and it's still to this day a pretty sound diet because it does look at all the food groups. No food is bad kind of thing. Mediterranean diet really took attention in the 1970s. Remember this one, the cookie diet? I would say about 5 years ago, the cookie diet came back, and there was a whole, I won't tell you the company, but they were selling, high protein cookies, high fiber cookies, diet cookies. It was a cookie diet. The Scarsdale diet, the Slim Fast diet, diet pills. It's interesting. Now, I wanted to focus your attention here, the dietary guidelines for Americans. I'm going to show you a little snippet of it a little bit later. The dietary guidelines for Americans is a research-based guideline for Americans, okay? Just like the title. And it's written every 5 years. So the scientists survey our diet as a population to see what are we doing wrong? What are we doing right? Did we improve ourselves over the 5 years? And you're going to see that the newer 5 years, we wrote it again, 2020 to 2025, and the results are still pretty bad. So what is going on? We have all this information. We're just not translating it into our lifestyle. When you look over here in the 2000s, we've had some pretty wacky diets. The HCG diet, I do know of several people that have tried this diet. It's a very low calorie diet, 500 calories, maybe 600 calories, and you do get injected with a hormone called HCG, which is supposed to take away your hunger. It's supposed to prevent loss of lean body mass. But really, can you really sustain a 500 calorie diet? Yes, Not really, right? So the people that get off of it are going to regain all their weight back. When you go further down here, the gluten-free diet, following a gluten-free diet is an evidence-based diet for people that have back disease or food allergy to. So it is an evidence-based diet, absolutely. How it translated into a diet, I think, propaganda marketing thing, because now the food industry has all of these gluten-free products that people are eating, and little do they know they're eating tons of calories because they might have taken the gluten out, but they've loaded it up with other junk. So we have to be careful about that. Paleo diet, some of that. The Mind diet is a version of the Mediterranean diet, which we actually talked about. The keto diet is still very popular. So lots of different diets. Oh my gosh, which ones do we follow? And then being a dietitian, I'm a nutritionist, but I'm also a clinical dietitian. We have very disease specific diets. So I'll give you an example. I have a patient that had really bad reflux. Okay, it's called GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. And I was able to put her on an evidence-based therapeutic diet, which actually treated her GERD, and her GERD went away. How beautiful is that? I have a patient that has diabetes. I'm going to put them on a carbohydrate controlled diet to really help that diabetes. I have a patient who has fatty liver disease. I'm going to manipulate their diet, get rid of sugars, get rid of alcohol, put them on a low fat diet, and their fatty liver is going to get better. So what these diets are evidence-based, disease specific. Somebody like me, a dietitian, a clinical professional, a doctor, a nurse practitioner, this is what we would prescribe initially for a patient that might be wanting to treat some of these diseases. All right, so diets though, when you look at diets to lose weight, they have to have a certain characteristic, right? The first characteristic is it has to produce some sort of negative calorie balance. In other words, you got to reduce your calories if you want to try to lose weight. Either you're going to burn your calories or you're going to do both, burn some and decrease some. The other thing is that you have to incorporate high quality foods. There was a doctor that did an experiment and he put himself on a Twinkie diet. And he wanted to see, well, if I kept my diet to just eating Twinkies, but I reduced my calories, I actually lose weight. And guess what? Yeah, he lost weight because he restricted calories on the Twinkie diet. But guess what he developed? He developed fatty liver because of all of the sugar. And also the diet has to be realistic to adhere to. Over the years, my counseling technique has definitely changed. I'm more of a patient-centered approach. I don't do a directive counseling where I tell my clients or patients what to do. That's not my style. And if that's what you want me to do, then I'm not the right person for you. The reason why I say that is that I can't tell somebody what to do. You've got to motivate, go deep down inside. What motivates you to make that particular change? Of course, I can facilitate. Of course, I can give lots of different tips. Of course, I can help you, but I can't tell you what to do. You've got to make that decision that you're either going to do it or not do it. So if you decide, well, I want to go on a low carbohydrate diet, I'm going to want to know from you, well, what does that mean to you? Mean that you're not, you're going to just cut out a food group? I want to find out, what does that mean? Oops, sorry. Okay, so let's talk about the keto diet first. So the keto diet, as I said, let me see if I can get rid of that. Okay, so the keto diet is an evidence-based diet that was developed in the 1920s for kids that didn't respond to medications. And these are kids that had seizures. And the reason why ketones good for the brain for those that have seizures is because it's below that threshold that causes those seizures. So that's what the keto diet is all about. So keto diets have transformed into a weight loss diet. It's almost, I'm not going to call it the Atkins diet, but it has a lot of similarities to the Atkins diet. A lot of people think the keto diet is a high protein diet. It is not a high protein diet. It's a high fat diet. And that's what the Atkins diet was as well. So this diet is about 75 to 80% fat, about 3 to 4 grams of fat for every 1 gram of carbohydrate. It actually keeps protein pretty low, about 15%. I really wouldn't call that low. I would actually call that about average, but it's also a very low carb, 5%. So it's high fat, low carb. So even though we're supposed to be eating the good fats, it doesn't, some diet plans I notice allow you to have butter in your coffee. So that that you want to take that. Um, so here's the modified Atkins diet, very low carb, and usually carbohydrates are less than 30 grams a day. So translating that into, something that's reasonable. If you drink a glass of orange juice in the morning and it's 8 ounces, 8 to 12 ounces, there's your 30 grams of carbohydrate. You're done. You're done for the day. So what does that mean? No vegetables, because vegetables are carbs. No fruit? Nope. Those are carbs. No starch? Nope. Okay. So that's why it doesn't sound very reasonable or very healthy. However, when you look at the research, because there is research that's going into it, it does show that in rodents, it might be helping with insulin resistance and glucose intolerance. So if you see all these up arrows, right? So insulin resistance actually goes up. That's not good. Glucose intolerance actually goes up. Well, that's not good either. But here in humans, it actually goes down. And that's why even some doctors might put patients on this diet. However, caveat, it should be for a short amount of time. Okay, it doesn't mean that this is a lifestyle. Let's maybe try a person on a keto diet. Let's see how they're doing with their blood sugars, and then try to ease them into a different kind of diet. Let's see, lower cholesterol, which is almost an oxymoron because it's high in fat, and yet some of the cholesterols do go down. High HDL. Remember, HDL is the good fat. Okay. Hepatic inflammation. We didn't see that. Let's see, blood pressure goes down, weight goes down. So even though this research study showed, wow, the keto diet has a lot of benefits, why wouldn't I follow it? You always have to read the research, how long, what was the population, was there a comparative study, was there a repeat study? So what are the controversies? Okay. Well, according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is my professional association that governs my practice, they don't recommend the keto diet for people that have anything wrong with their pancreas, any kind of pancreatic disease. They don't want you to follow it if you have any kind of liver condition. They don't want you to follow it if you have any kind of thyroid problem, if you have any eating disorder, or you have any gallbladder disease. So that's really important for me as a clinician to know, because if you come to me and you have a liver problem and you're telling me you want to go on the keto diet, I'm going to try to explain to you how that could actually be very detrimental to your health. I wouldn't be actually helping you. I'd be hurting you. What are the other controversies? There's limited evidence to show that it actually confers long-term health. Okay, so if it's something that patients are following for short-term is usually defined as no more than 6 to 8 weeks. In humans, what could happen is something called a keto flu. So you kind of feel kind of crappy. You really do. Like you got a fishbowl over your head. You can't concentrate. And the reason for that is because your brain is working on ketones, which it doesn't really like. Your brain, glucose, the ketones are system. So if you're forcing your brain to use ketones, it's kind of unhappy with you. It can increase the risk of kidney stones. So if that's your history, I don't know if you should be going on the keto diet. It can definitely cause bad breath, which is a little irritating, just because of the ketones. It can cause muscle cramps, dehydration, dizziness. It can actually increase LDL, which actually hurts your heart. Liver disease, okay, constipation. So, if somebody came to me and said, look, I want a keto diet, I'd have to, first look at your health status. I would really want to know what your goals were, how long you would want to follow it. I don't just push patients away or clients away and say, no, I'm not going to help you. I can help you. But I would also want to say, look, let's do this for a short amount of time, just because I don't know the long-term effects. And if we keep you on it for a long time, number one, that's not lifestyle, because it's cutting out a lot of food groups and foods that I think are very healthy for you. So these are the choices. All right. Very strict. So you can have your beef and your lamb. And a lot of people are trying to get rid of red meat. Well, you can have a lot of red meat on the keto diet. You can have your bacon, your pork chops. You can have your chicken thigh and your chicken breast. You can have your salmon, which happens to be a fatty fish, but that's okay. Your almond butter, your eggs, and your liver if you want to. These are the vegetables. and fruits. Explain to me why somebody can't have green peas on a keto diet when they're really healthy for us. Can a patient have Swiss chard on the keto diet? It as a nutritionist, it doesn't make sense to me. Okay, but these are the fruits and vegetables that you're allowed to have on. You can have your raspberries and blueberries, but no, you can't have an apple. Does that make sense to you? Okay, maybe I'm being a little sarcastic. Okay, dairy products. A lot of people are moving away from dairy, but on the keto, you can have it. So you're doing your heavy cream and you're doing your Greek yogurt, full fat Greek yogurt. You're having all your different cheeses and things like that. You can have your nuts and nut flour. Okay, now good for us. So there are good components of this diet, but very high fat, as you can see. And these are your fluid choices. You can have your water, your flavored water, your carbonated water. Like maybe making the connection between this is a big food marketing ploy as well. Because look at all the different products that came out on the market when the keto went crazy, right? We have all these different flavored carbonated waters now. As a nutritionist, I'm really careful with carbonation and my patients and clients because this could actually cause a problem. Tea, coffee, diet soda, coconut and almond milk and broth. Okay, so there you go. Those are your fluids. So as you can see, it's a very limited diet. This is a typical menu. They let you drink something called adventure coffee, which has coconut oil or heavy cream or butter, an egg, if you wanted to put an egg in there. You can have a full fat breakfast and then have some more fat for a snack. And then maybe keep lunch a little light because you're getting a green salad, but you're putting some salmon on it and some protein. You're having your afternoon snack, you know. So as a nutritionist, when I look at this, if somebody just looked at it just quickly, you might say, oh, that doesn't look like an unhealthy diet, right? You got some nuts, you got your salmon, you got your apple. This one has an apple, which is really not allowed. So I don't know where this menu came from. But when you actually did the breakdown of the macronutrients, it would be very, very high in fat. Okay, so that's the problem that I would have with it. Now, the paleo diet is pretty interesting too. It was actually proposed by two anthropologists back in 1985 when they were looking at our ancestors and what the cavemen were actually eating. Well, they weren't eating legumes because they probably didn't even know that they existed back then. They were eating lean meats, because they were catching Tyrannosaurus Rex and they were eating all the internal organs and the bone marrow on top of that. So they were hunter and gatherers, right? So when you look at the research here, it's showing that, well, the paleo diet has been shown to reduce your blood pressure and reduce your cholesterol and improve your insulin sensitivity. But it's interesting, it's really not used for weight loss in people that are overweight. Okay. So the breakdown of the paleo diet is higher in protein, so it's 30%. It's kind of equal with fat, so it's 30% protein, 32% fat, and a little bit higher in a carbohydrate, 38%. So it almost reminds me a little bit about the zone diet. Remember the zone diet was 40, 30, 30? That was the percentage of the zone diet. So these are some of the foods that are allowed on paleo. You can have your lean proteins. So it allows you to have, chicken and turkey and some of your lean red meat, your seafood, shellfish. It allows you to have non-starchy veggies. Okay, because back in caveman days, they didn't have potatoes. So you can have your non-starchy veggies. You can have your nuts and seeds. You can have your eggs. You can have your plant-based oils. All right, so what's not allowed? Well, sugar. Okay, grains. I guess, our cavemen didn't farm wheat. So no starchy veggies, no legumes, no dairy, no processed foods, no salty foods, no high fat meats. Okay, so as a nutritionist, I kind of agree with some of this, right? I really don't want you to overdo your sugar or your high fat or your salty foods, your processed foods. But really, you can't have a sweet potato? Explain that to me. You can't have some lentils, which we know are really good for us, antioxidants, good fiber, folate, okay? Dairy, I know dairy is controversial, but dairy has a lot of nutrients in it. So again, it takes out food groups that as a nutritionist, I can't quite understand. So just comparing the two, paleo and keto, the paleo diet eliminates the sugar, the dairy, the grains, the processed foods, but you're basically keeping the macros almost even. Whereas in the keto diet, they're really keeping that very high fat, low carb. Now, last time we did talk about intermittent fasting. Now, that's another type of diet pattern. It's not necessarily a diet. There is more research to show that intermittent fasting can actually be a healthy diet, although it's not easy to follow. So it's not for everyone, because intermittent fasting would mean that you decide based on this pattern when you're going to eat. So the most common is this time restricted, where, just for example, you're not eating for 16 hours of the day, and hopefully you're sleeping for 8 of that, and you are eating within an 8-hour period. But remember, you got to stay within your calorie intake. So it doesn't mean you're having a bunch of Twinkies in the 8 hours. It means you still have to stay within your calories. So, this could work for a lot of people's lifestyle. I know a lot of doctors and nurses and lawyers that, because of their schedules, this actually works pretty good. It's just that we just have to make sure they're not overindulging in that time that they are eating. Okay, so that's intermittent fasting. Calorie restriction, even though dieting is not all about calories, we do have to start somewhere. So according to nutrition and dietetics, the best way to start if somebody's trying to lose weight or gain weight is you got to determine what's the calorie level of that person. Do they want to lose? Okay, if they want to lose, we got to decrease the calories. If they want to gain, we have to increase the calories. And that's just all about physiology. So when you look at lifestyle, that's really where we want to go. Okay, it's not just all about the number on the scale of the calories. We want to look at food and calories, but we also want to look at your physical activity. And you know what? If you can't do a lot of exercise, that could be okay, but what can you do? Can you do a little gardening? Can you do a little house? Are you doing the laundry? Do you have stairs in your home that you can climb once a day? There are different types of physical activity that count towards health. And then you have to look at the other behavior, right? The non-food and non-exercise behavior, everything else holistically. Are you self-monitoring? Are you an emotional eater? Do you have stimulus issues? Like if you see a pizza on a TV commercial, oh my gosh, now I want a pizza. Um, do you have emotional eating? I mean, a lot of my patients have emotional eating. All right. So we have to look at the whole person. Now, I've shown this chart before because it just gives you an idea a little bit about how many servings of each food group to eat within a certain calorie level. And I like to show it to show you that I'm not leaving out food groups. Okay, now if you say to me, look, I don't really eat a lot of vegetables. Okay, well, which vegetables do you eat? If you don't like broccoli, I'm not going to make you eat it because you would never eat it. Like green beans, then eat green beans. Just have 3 servings of green beans throughout the day. So it's all about looking at what you do eat and kind of fitting it into a template that can actually help your health. And this is just for your own reference, since a lot of us don't bring our meals to dinner, you can actually kind of do visuals, right? At one time we used to say, yeah, look at the size of your palm. I don't really like that because everybody has a different size hand, but this just gives you a little bit of an idea of how you can kind of look at your hand and take a measurement. But really what it's doing is making you mindful of what you're eating. Okay. Now, if this is too much trouble or too much work, another place that you can start is look at your plate and cut it in half. All right, just cut it in half. Or if you know that your challenge is starch because you really love pasta, you really love rice, okay, just cut it in half. Start there. And then as you get used to that, then we can start making other changes. So that could just be a good start. Or maybe another start would be, all right, don't even touch your starches. Keep going. Have your cup of pasta, but maybe you can increase the vegetables on your plate. And maybe if you start eating the vegetables first, maybe you'll feel full and then you naturally will eat less of the starch. So there are lots of different techniques that we can do to help somebody reduce their portion without being so restrictive and saying, no, you can't have an apple, you can't have Swiss chard, and you can't have broccoli. That just doesn't make sense to me. This is another technique that we clinicians use too. We do something called lifestyle therapy, where we're also including sleep as well. So for patients that tell me, hey, look, I'm really having a hard sleeping, I really try to direct them back to their primary care physician, because when we don't sleep, we don't feel well. It can lead to stress hormones, it can lead to heart attack, it can lead to diabetes. So why wouldn't I want to address that? Okay, so I'm limited in what I can do for my profession and my expertise. So I'm going to refer somebody to somebody else. Maybe they might want to try melatonin, maybe they might want to try valerian, maybe I'm going to ask them to go to Karen to help with different, physical therapy techniques. So you do have to look at things holistically. Same thing with smoking cessation. So if that comes to me and wants to healthier, but the first thing they do is light up a cigarette, well, I can't force them to stop. I can't prescribe medication, but I can make the referral maybe to a structured program. And I know smoking is a whole different ball game, because it is a very addicting kind of product. Now, this is another approach that you might want to consider: health at every size, which means that we're not really looking at your weight. We're looking at your health as a focus. And I really like this approach for a lot of my clients and patients, because what happens is we get so hung up on the scale that you're really forgetting what the if you're so worried that you didn't lose the pound after making all of these changes, then you get demotivated. How about looking at the fact that now you can, have less medication, or you fit differently in that dress than you did last month, or you can get on the floor and play with your grandkids without your bones cracking. You got to come up with other non-scale successes, because you're not defined by just a number on the scale. So, I have a patient that I work with. She doesn't get on the scale. The only time she gets on the scale is when she sees me at the hospital. And that's just because that's one of our things. I'll say, would you like to get on the scale? And if she said no, that would be okay too. But she says, all right, I'll go on the scale, because this is my only time I get the subjective number. Every time else, she just looks according to her clothes, how she feels, the fact that she can breathe. She told me that she went up this twice and she didn't breath. She was able to carry a laundry basket, things like that, things that really matter to quality of life. So the three concepts of health at every size is self-acceptance, physical activity, and, normalized eating. Now, one diet that I do enjoy, it is called the DASH diet. And this is a diet that is evidence-based. It actually stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. And I can tell you that my patients that have had high blood pressure, when they follow this diet, it has significantly helped their blood pressure to the point that some of them get off of their meds. And that is a beautiful thing if you can get off a medication. It's a plant-based diet. Doesn't mean that you can't have some chicken and turkey and fish, but it is based on higher levels of plants, whole grains, vegetables, fruits, okay, seeds, nuts. Again, still within a calorie count though. So what are you allowed to have? You can have your lean meats, your seafood, you can have your nuts and seeds, you can have dairy if you drink dairy, or we'll pick a dairy alternative, your fruits, your veggies, your whole grains. So this is really nice because, again, it includes all the food groups. Now, if you don't like sweet potatoes, don't eat them, but at least it's a choice. And then, of course, the Mediterranean diet. I know we had a whole lecture on the Mediterranean diet. It is one of the healthiest diets, and yet we don't really have a good definition for the Mediterranean diet. We do know that this is prevalent in those countries that are Mediterranean, right? Like Italy and Spain and Portugal. The base of their lifestyle, though, is activity and social and family. So how beautiful this has nothing to do with food intake. It's all about relationships, it's all about love, it's about family, it's about friends. And this is so nice because that is part of holistic health. And then as you go up the pyramid, it's still a plant-based diet where you really focus on your fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And then the proteins that you do eat, they do prefer fish and seafood over anything else. And then you can have a little bit of poultry, and then your red meat and your sweets are really high on the pyramid here, which means you eat less of them. So that's the basis of the Mediterranean diet. The MIND diet is just a variation of the Mediterranean diet. This is also an evidence-based diet that has been shown to help people with dementia. It has also helped people with Alzheimer's. So we're hoping to implement it early in people as a preventative, right? So when you look at what you can eat on the MIND diet, again, you can have lots of different things. They don't really eliminate too many things except maybe, processed foods and fried foods. You can still have them, but, just have much less of them. This is just an example of the MIND diet. Now, when I look at this compared to the keto menu that I showed you, I get more excited about this kind of a diet. You're having some Greek yogurt, you're having your berries, maybe you're having a slice of whole grain toast with some, avocado. Your lunch, I have a sandwich, some chicken breasts, I have a salad, I'm having salmon, I'm having vegetables. So to me, this just looks like a healthier diet. Still kind of plant-based, right? But definitely healthier, lower in fat. Now, the TLC diet, I have to tell you, is really hard to follow. This would be somebody that really would want to become a vegetarian. And the TLC diet has been shown to really significantly help your heart. So people that might have just had a heart attack or might have just had, a heart bypass surgery, sometimes they're very motivated to change their diet because they just don't want to go through that trauma. So you're looking at less than 7% of your calories coming from saturated fat. That would mean it's almost a vegetarian vegan diet. You're eating animal proteins, you're getting fat. Now you can get low fat, like chicken has maybe about 2 grams of saturated fat, so it's low, but this is really more of the vegetarian diet. And this is just a comparison, just for your own knowledge there. All right, so the guidelines, just mention to you what they are because nobody talks about them. It's not on the news, it's not taught in class, but it's such an important document. So the Dietary Guidelines for Americans is a collaboration between the Department of Agriculture and Department of Health and Human Services. And they survey the American diets, they survey health, and then they come up with suggestions. Okay. And this time around, the 2020 to 2025 guidelines is the first time that they actually looked at life cycle nutrition. Really love. How should our kids be eating? How should our babies be eating? Our toddlers, our adolescents, middle-aged, or older Americans. So they really did a nice job on these guidelines. All you have to do is get on the internet and type in Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and you can download the whole entire packet. And it's well written, it has nice pictures, it has nice charts. This is a really great way to give a guide to somebody that's evidence. Okay, so here you go. Just say I wanted to follow 1,200 calories. Well, it's encouraging you to have your vegetables, in particular the dark green vegetables, because those are really healthy for us, and red and orange, starchy vegetables, so it doesn't keep those out, beans and peas, your fruits. So it includes all the food groups, but in certain portion sizes, right? So that's why this is a really, really nice guide. And if you can get a copy of these slides, at least you'll have them. Now, mind mapping is a technique that sometimes I use for my patients who are very motivated, that really want to make a change. And what mind mapping is, it was developed by an educator. Basically, what you're thinking about is you have a central idea and then you have all these different branches, and all these different branches give you other ideas. And that's what's really fun about it. So the reason why I implemented this with some of my patients is because I know if we just talk, it's like, what did she say? But if you can engage together and collaborate together, you're just going to remember it so much better. Okay, so let me show you. So this is how you would do it. So just say we're trying to decide what diet somebody be on. Well, how motivated is somebody? Do they even have food? That's important. If you want to put them on a Mediterranean diet and they have no access to seafood, well, that's not going to work, right? What are their food choices and eating patterns? Do they have any support? What happens if you're the one, our whole family, and nobody else wants to follow it? Well, that's a challenge we're going to have to overcome. right? Are there any kind of medications or conditions that I have to be aware of? So how I would start out, so there are a lot of questions I would have to have answered. And this is just an example. So we might want to look at different nutrients in different foods and what they might help. So if I have a patient that has a heart condition, or if I have a patient that has diabetes, or they want to lose weight, well, that's when I start plugging in some of the foods that I know will help them with those conditions. So this is just another example. I want to show you how I actually did this for my patient. So just say this patient or this client of mine had high blood pressure and high cholesterol. He also had a BMI of 35, which means he's obese. He's a smoker and he doesn't work out. Okay, so this is my typical patient, right? Well, what we started to do is we started to talk about, well, what kind of diseases could happen with all these medical conditions? Your high blood pressure, your high cholesterol can lead to heart disease. It can lead to stroke. And then if you're smoking, that can lead to stroke and heart disease as well. You could get cancer, you can get lung disease. If you're active, got weight gain. So look at this mind map. So this is what we came up with. So for this particular, decided, okay, he's going to do the Mediterranean diet. And he was actually able to tell me what kind of foods he wanted to include. So we just kind of mapped it out like that. And then we wrote it out in a way that actually follow it. Okay. So this was his breakfast: oatmeal with some mixed berries, some tea, some broiled chicken breasts, steamed barley, a salad. He had an apple, he had some salmon and spinach and rice, and he had some roasted almonds. And all of these foods in here are foods that are going to help not just his weight, but also his heart, his hypertension, his high cholesterol. So really we hit 3 birds with 1 stone, which was really fun. Okay, so that's who this patient was. Okay. All right, so the other thing you had to do is definitely prioritize. Again, it's not free. You have to see, does the patient have access to food? Are they are they motivated to do it? So just mind mapping. You can do it yourself, really. It's kind of fun. You just kind of, draw different boxes and put in things that you like, and then you come up with a. And I also actually sent him to a smoking cessation program, which was good. So really the take-home message of this lecture when it comes to diets is that one size does not fit all. It has to be personalized. And a healthy lifestyle means long-term goal, right? You're not just working on weight, you're working on your health. There is no magic bullet, so you got to be patient with it. You have to work with it and find what your motivation is. And then maybe do a little mind mapping, what you can do to prioritize. It'll really help you to decide what you're ready to change and what you're not ready to change. And definitely get professional help to do it. It's not something that's easy to do on your own. Those are my references. And of course, those are my doggies. All right. Any questions? All right. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much for coming. Any questions, Karen, my group over there, my fan club?
So we have a question here, Lillian.
Tell me.
I think I know it, but let me confirm it. The diet for GERD would be no spicy food and no fried food.
That's correct. That's top of the list. You're absolutely right. Also, no caffeine, no carbonation.
Which I don't take caffeine and I don't take carbonation. That's good.
Okay, excellent. Don't lay down after you eat.
Right.
Okay, eat smaller, more frequent portions.
That I know.
Very good. People stay away from tea, especially from the tannins. Tea, like different teas.
Right.
Stay away from it. I know that's hard for some.
Stay away from what?
Chocolate.
Oh, no chocolate.
Yeah, because it has caffeine. It has caffeine and it has something called theobromine, which actually irritates your stomach.
So no chocolate.
Yep.
The
other thing that's really kind of crazy too is stay away from oregano.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah.
Okay. Even if you eat Italian food, make sure there's not a lot of oregano in it.
Really?
Cucumbers actually bother some people with GERD. Yep. I mean, so even foods that you wouldn't even think, like cucumbers. Are you kidding me? Cucumbers are pretty bland, but yeah, cucumbers can actually instigate acid.
Really?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, excellent. And
Well,
and I don't, some people have to be put on PPIs, which are, acid reducers. But if somebody, I always advise my patients that have GERD, make sure you get a checkup. Make sure you do periodically an EGD, which is an
yes,
endoscopy. Yep,
yes,
because GERD can be pretty dangerous. It could lead to
yes,
pretty
I know.
serious things.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
excellent. So it sounds like you're on top of it, my friend.
My daughter's a chiropractor and she loads me
There you
up with
go.
vitamins. What do you think about that?
Well, it depends on the vitamin because vitamins can exacerbate the condition. For example, vitamin C is ascorbic acid. Your body can only absorb about 250 milligrams. So if you're taking more than
Yeah,
that, you're increasing your risk of
no,
gastritis,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Things like turmeric, things that might be of that nature, you have to be careful. Even though vitamins and minerals are very healthy, you have to be careful because you have to suit it correctly for your condition.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Very enlightening. It was a
Oh,
wonderful lecture. I thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank Aaron.
Oh, it's
Well,
Thank you.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you
thank
for
you so much.
coming.
Helen
All
got to
right.
sit in the office and watch it.